The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The first ever premiere podcast, the initial, the originator, the Terminator. Wait, no. Long Road to Ruin, everybody. The podcast where Sean and I, that's Sean. That's Sean, you're not.
Hi, everybody.
This is still an audio medium.
And hello, my big, bald, beautiful love machine.
That is me, the big, bald, beautiful love machine. That's what they call me at the Swinger Party House. I am your mandated reporter, Mr. Mark Radulich. And this is the podcast where we look back on franchises old and new and discuss them in vascular detail. Tonight, we are looking at Here Come the Men in Black. Yes, sir, Bob. And this, when Sean and I first did The Long Road to Ruin, we had like a pretty lengthy list, which, just as an aside, I took my girlfriend out for a fancy dinner for her birthday last night. And she was like, and she's been listening to the last 2 or 3 years of podcasts. She's trying to get a feel for yeah, I know dude, if she wasn't already married, I'd probably marry her, if only because my own actual life never did this, but this one's like, send me all the podcasts you want me to listen to so I can get a better feel for who you are, who your friends are, and we have stuff to talk about. Yeah, she's awesome.
I like this one already.
Me too. So that being said, she was like, I would like to hear podcasts for movies I've actually seen, though, because like I know some of the shit you talk about, but a lot of it, like, I don't know what the fucking deuce is. Like I only learned who David Simon was because you won't stop shutting up about The Wire. So that being said, so she's like throwing all these movies at me, and I'm like, yeah, we never did that. And I'm thinking back to all the ones you and I did, and she's like, well, how about the Terminator movies? I'm like, Sean and I did that. She's like, how about Chronicles of Riddick? Sean and I did that. So she said the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans are the only Spider-Man movies she's ever seen, and I'm like, Sean and I did that, and I had to re-edit it so that it was actually listenable. That was when Jeff Harris.
You're gonna start getting me back to wanting to redo some of these old shows.
Maybe
if you're not careful. I'm gonna start chasing the dopamine. I'm already chasing the THC. So
perfect. Well, this was a long way to say that. This was a long way to go to say that we had a long list of stuff that we never got to because we stopped doing the show for a while, and we're kind of getting back into the groove of, hey, some of those I'd still like to talk about. A couple of them she actually asked me about. She was like, did you do the Oceans movies? And I'm like, I would love to sit down and talk with Sean about the Oceans movies. Because we never did them.
How haven't we gotten those?
Because we stopped doing the show because we hated each other. No, so
we didn't hate each other. You were probably fed up with the person I was at the time, and I don't blame you.
So
But
this was one of those movies.
Yeah.
We're slowly working these back into the rotation, and we were supposed to do this a month or two ago, but we did not. So here we are. We're talking the Men in Black.
Hi, no problem. It's me.
My co-host Taylor Swift. That being said, I enjoyed the first of these. I think this is Will Smith at the height of his powers. And we'll get into all the demographic and biographical information in just a second. But the first one comes out in 1997. I'm in college, and like this is post Prince of Bel-Air Will Smith, who is becoming a bankable, dependable Hollywood star, and he's partnered with Tommy Lee Jones, who was also at that time when there were more than two Hollywood stars, bankable Hollywood money. Tommy Lee Jones was a draw. And they put these two guys in what nobody knew was a comic book adaptation at the time into just this sci-fi action adventure. And what fun was had. And, Will Smith got to sing and dance like he does. And I think Linda Cardellini's in the first one. And it's just a lot of fun.
I'm trying to remember her name.
Linda Fiorentino.
I was close. Fiorentino. Yes.
Yeah. Cardellini, Fiorentino. Linda, Italian broad. So I had a lot of fun with the first one. And the first one was a wild success. They did a second one. I don't remember liking the second one as much as the first one, like every other film nerd out there. But most people, I think, really enjoyed it. And then, like everything we talk about on Long Road to when the third one goes off a fucking cliff. So tell me, what were your impressions of the first Men in Black movie? When did you see it, etc.?
My impression is now that I'm not entirely sure we watched the same sequels.
We'll discuss it.
But yeah, as you mentioned, the first movie comes right off the back of a year or two prior, Will Smith doing Independence Day. He gets offered this one. He initially turns it down several times, I believe, because he didn't want to be typecast as the black leading man in a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah. And, Spielberg had to actually fly him out to his place in the Hamptons and have this lengthy, day-long discussion with him to talk him into doing the movie. This would kind of be another movie that would cement what, for a brief, embarrassing time, was known as Big Willie Weekend.
Oh yes,
because he was the cleanup hitter of the summer movie season, and as Will point, and if you don't believe that, read his memoir. He will tell you again and again and again at the start of every other chapter. Anyway, but yeah, it was briefly kind of marketed as Big Willie Weekend among he and his people, until they realized that to UK audiences, he had basically been inviting audiences to come out and have a great time for Big Dick Weekend.
Look, I have been to a lot of Big Dick Weekends in the past 2 years. I'm just saying,
bastard.
They're not all bad.
You lucky fuck.
You can have them.
Thank you. I can eat.
All right. So, what'd you think of the first one?
I loved it. First off, it's kind of weird to think of Tommy Lee Jones as being a draw, a fantastic actor, but just not the kind you normally think of as being a draw. But you're right.
He's got a rough face and a rough demeanor, and but you remember, he's the Two-Face in the Joel Schumacher the third of the 89 Batman series. That's the first of the Joel Schumacher ones. He's in the one Volcano movie. I don't remember which one. It might have just been Volcano.
Yeah, I think it was just Volcano. Yeah.
So there's a stretch there where he's like the leading man in a lot of action movies. He's the opposite Harrison Ford in The Fugitive. And
before that he was heading up the cast of The Client.
Right. So Tommy Lee Jones is
for that. So
Tommy Lee Jones is no joke.
No, he is not. He is your quintessential straight man for movies like this. And that's the thing that I remember most is the fact that he played off Will just being Will so effortlessly. I think he actually made Will look like a better actor than he was at this point.
I have some thoughts about their interplay in the first one that I want to get to.
But again, it never feels forced. It never feels like your stereotypical Riggs and Murtaugh buddy cop chemistry. And that's not to say Will was bad at this point, but just he wasn't the guy that 2 years ago won his first Oscar. He wasn't even the guy who made being Muhammad Ali look easy. He still had a ways to go, but the potential was there. So,
all right. So some demographic information. The Men in Black, also known as MIB, is a series of American science fiction action comedy films directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, based on the Malibu Marvel comic book series The Men in Black by Lowell Cunningham. Just a brief thing on the comics. The comic book was illustrated by Sandy Carruthers and originally published by Aircell Comics. Aircell would later be bought by Malibu, which was then itself bought by Marvel Comics, which was then bought by Pornhub. 3 issues were... I'm from the future. 3 issues were published in 1990, and another 3 were the following year. It was adapted into the film, obviously, Men in Black, which was a critical and commercial success, and then led to 3 sequels and a spinoff, as well as a number of tie-in one-shot comics from Marvel. Cunningham had the idea for the comic once a friend had introduced him to the concept of government Men in Black upon seeing a black van riding in the streets. So that's all you really need to know about that. The first film, Men in Black, was released in 1997, second in 2002, and the third is 2012. We've already reviewed on Damn You Hollywood Men in Black International in 2019, and the less said about that, the better. All right. So go ahead, Sean. What production notes do you have on the very first Men in Black?
Not a whole lot, really. I once more just kind of came into this one just looking at it as a fan. And as it stands, I didn't find much. I did look at the notes, I glanced at them, but I didn't find anything that I considered terribly interesting that seemed like it made the movie better or held it back. I keep coming back to your opinion of those two sequels. I'll kind of agree with you on number 2, but 3 was a goddamn surprise.
Yeah, look. We can get into it once we get there. I don't remember people enjoying it. I think is more of what I was trying to say. What your own personal enjoyment or mine. First one's the best one. All right. So if there's nothing else, let's just get into the first one then. So the first one, as like I said, was directed by Barry Sonnenfeld, and it was a budget of $90 million. It made almost $600 million. So this was a wild success. And the plot of it, it's been a month or two since I've watched the first one. And I don't want to do a recitation, like read through of it, because I've noticed when I go back and listen to these, it just drags the whole podcast down. So bear with me if I skip a detail. But essentially, there's a MacGuffin. The MacGuffin is somewhere on Earth. We are tasked with protecting the MacGuffin, and another alien race wants the MacGuffin. And if we can't stop the alien from getting it, or if we can't get the MacGuffin back to its rightful owners, then the rightful owners will just nuke the planet just to be sure. And so it's a race against the clock to make sure this doesn't happen. We pick up with Tommy Lee Jones and his partner, who are the Men in Black, and the partner kind of goofs up a gig, and he's going to go into retirement, and now Tommy Lee Jones needs a new partner. We meet Will Smith, who is, Will Smith. He is an overly excited, overly ambitious action cop doing action cop stuff. And he runs all over New York City like the Flash. And he comes across the situation with Tommy Lee Jones, and Tommy Lee Jones sees him as a lump of clay that he can mold into not just, as we'll find out, his partner, but eventually his eventual replacement. And we learn along the way a lot about both characters, and much of the first act and a half is establishing what is this world we're living in, what are the rules, and who are the men in black. We come to find out that aliens landed here around the time of the of the New York City Fair, and that the discs that are on the columns in New York City and Queens are actually alien ships. Because aliens have landed on Earth, they have given us technology, and they created the Men in Black. So basically, the idea is essentially, we are a haven for aliens on the run. We are a refugee planet for aliens out there. But the world is not ready for aliens. It's 2023, and the world is not ready for aliens, though it seems to be that every time the subject matter has come up lately, the reaction is, yeah, the world's hot, wet, and on fire, and nobody has any money. The last thing we need to be worrying about is aliens. Like, at this point, if they can take over and make things better, we'll be grateful. But in the year of our Lord, 1997, the idea was the world is not ready for aliens. We need to keep these people hidden. So the aliens are living amongst us, but they're all wearing disguises. And the Men in Black are here to make sure the aliens don't do nefarious things. They are a control agency. They are also an investigative agency. They are also a place for gathering and keeping information. And they are funded by future technologies that they get from space, that they get from aliens out there. And so then the rest of the movie is Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith, and eventually Linda Fiorentino, gathering clues, tracking down the MacGuffin, running afoul of the bad guy. And of course, the bad guy is a giant cockroach monster, because that was also popular back then. And it ends in a giant fuck-all fight with said cockroach. They end up killing him. They get the MacGuffin back to where it belongs, and it turns out that the universe is really just a giant Russian doll. It's a universe inside of a universe inside of a universe inside of a locker inside of an anus inside of a locker. That's all it is. And that is the very first Men in Black in the best description I can give of it. Like I said, I very much love this movie. I want to talk about Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith together, because you mentioned it, and it was one of the things I wanted to talk about. You compared it to Riggs and Murtaugh and Lethal Weapon, and Mel Gibson's character is a nutcase in that movie, and Danny Glover is exhausted by him, but he's also like 100 in that movie, the way he describes himself. And he's just like, like one last day before retirement, and he has to deal with Riggs's crazy ass. That's that whole like relationship. Whereas Tommy Lee Jones is exhausted by Will Smith, but not because Will Smith is a crazy person who's out of control, because he's a toddler. And he's like, I need you to not be a toddler. I need you to be a sophisticated detective and be calm and cool and collected, and you're a complete asshole, and I need you to grow the fuck up, and I need it yesterday. And it's like, I have no time to train you. This is Qui-Gon, this is Obi-Wan and Anakin all over again. I have zero time or patience to train you properly, but time is of the essence, and it has to be done, and you're exhausting, and I just want to go home and shoot myself in the face with a memory gun. And I kind of love that relationship. I love the fact that Tommy Lee Jones likes Will Smith. He sees his potential, but also knows that he's a child asshole, and is like, I got to get you far enough into this that I can then walk away, and I don't have a lot of time to do it. So I'm kind of a dick, but I'm a dick because that's what the situation needs. And I think that's great, because Will Smith's whole arc is he's not as much of a baby toddler throwing tantrums by the end of the movie. Like, it's easy and low-hanging fruit to look at Men in Black and just sort of focus on the silly alien stuff, but it really is a great story about maturity and understanding the human condition and anxiety about things we don't know and don't understand. Tommy Lee Jones's line about the individual is smart, people are stupid, should have been on our American flag.
I still quote that shit sometimes.
More often than I'd like to admit. But it's like, don't tread on me doesn't really describe America. People are the individual smart people are stupid. Really nails it though. So I've been talking for a bit. Go ahead and jump in here, Sean.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's got a real surreal backdrop that I think works in part because they draw back the curtain on it just enough without over explaining and wasting too much time building out the world. But the thing that I found really curious about the interplay between J and K, between Will Smith and Tommy, and this is gonna sound out there, but it's a case of you sing a song at 10,000 people, they'll sing it back to you for 10,000 personal reasons. But what I like about it is that number one, is it just me, or rarely do you ever actually hear Kay really kind of lose his shit and even raise his voice at Will? He's tired, he's stern, he's a little impatient, but he never really fully loses it at him at any point. And
he's a very good dad.
Yeah. And at the same time, for all the kind of braggadocio and everything, I think by the end it's apparent that deep down Jay really cares about earning Kay's respect. Like from the get-go, but by the end, it's really, really important. It's paramount.
I think one of the reasons why this appeals to a lot of people is because there's a very vivid father-son dynamic going on in this movie, it's one of the themes of it. Tommy Lee Jones is mentoring in a fatherly way Will Smith, and Will Smith, without going into a lot of backstory, without over explaining, like you said, very much is looking for a father figure that he didn't know he needed, and it works. And I think, I almost said I think it's a movie that a lot of guys can relate to, because don't we all want the respect of our fathers? But it's not like girls don't want the respect of their father either. I think we children are looking for fathers, either in our actual ones or in mentors in the men around us. I without going on too much of a tangent, I do want to take this moment to say, in the year of our Lord 2023, I think a lot of times the importance of fathers in the lives of people gets overlooked and minimized and often disregarded. And this was one of those movies. No wonder it has the appeal that it does, that very much says, no, father figures are important. Men are important. They're just as important as women. Let's stop pretending otherwise. And Men in Black deals with that without hitting you over the head with a frying pan about it. It's all in the subtext.
Something else I just realized too, and this is kind of unusual for action movies for a long time. There really isn't much of a romantic subplot.
There's none. I mean, Will Smith wants to get in Linda Fiorentino's pants, but who wouldn't?
But it's an after. But at this point in the story, it's an afterthought. It's used for. It's a
studio note. It's a studio note. It is absolutely a studio note. The studio was just like, I'm sure in a first pass through the script there was none of that, because there's no reason for Will Smith to be all horny pants for Linda Fiorentino, other than she's an attractive woman. However, men can be around attractive women and not be all horny pants about it. So I guarantee you, when the idea was to focus on like alien stuff and dad stuff and and Will's maturing arc, and then the studio executive got a hold of the fucking script, it was like, hey, no one's banging in this script. Yeah, we understand that, but that's not really what the movie's about. Yeah, I don't understand, but this is the year of our Lord 1997, and if you don't have a hot guy banging a hot woman, you can't sell this picture in America. Where do you think you are, France? This is not an independent movie. This is not. We're not doing indie pictures here. Have a guy bang a gal. What's wrong with you? And then so they rewrote it. They were like, "There's no time for that. That's not what this movie's about." But whatever. We'll make Will Smith. We'll make him nigh fucking inappropriate, just so we can get this studio note out of the way. And that's kind of how it comes across.
Mm. Which, is it just me, or was that kind of refreshing, actually?
What, that there's no romantic subplot?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. It's just what there is clearly shoehorned in. Like, obvious.
Yeah, but that also makes it easy to discard. It's like spitting out a cherry pit.
I 100% agree with you. It's
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up. It makes for interesting discussion, but it's not one of those things that even stuck out at me. Now, upon reflection, I was like, oh, that's right. I remember thinking that at the time. I was like, oh, good. There's no ridiculous romantic subplot, and it's unnecessary in this movie. And then what there is just mildly annoying.
I mean, think about it. By comparison, Independence Day, by my count, had about 3 of them shoehorned in there.
Another one that really didn't need. Well, I mean, Jeff Goldblum making amends with his wife was all you really needed. But yeah, you had to have Will Smith and he had to have a pretty princess to save. And
yeah, and then you got the president kind of on a search for his wife.
Oh, that's right. And then they aren't making amends necessarily. They're fine. The last I checked, it's that his wife dies. She's Will Smith needs a pretty princess to save. The president. Yeah. The president has to have his queen that dies, and the only one that has kind of an arc where it's necessary to have an actual romantic interest is Jeff Goldblum, who's making amends for being a shitty husband. But yeah, so you're right. By comparison, where you have way too many of in one movie and almost none in the other, it's pretty good. What did you think of the special effects and this? Look, the meat of this, the big attraction, the Hulk Hogan must pose is all the alien stuff. What do you think?
Frankly, I think they age shockingly well.
Yeah,
it's
funny what happens when you have practical effects in a movie.
Yeah, and the practical effects are pretty much all the effects, digital and practical, are superb from top to bottom. They don't look exactly what I would say out of place watching them now. But they're just, what I like most about them is the fact that they were absolute blowaway effects that added to the story and added to the atmosphere and weren't there in place of a weak cast or a convoluted script, something like that.
It is salt. It is not overly reliant on.
Yes.
And I want to say that again. I do I copped that line from my girlfriend's other boyfriend who said, I want to be salt in your life. And I really I like that line now and I want to use it constantly. But special effects should be salt in your movie, not the fucking movie. Ugh.
I would actually put it another way. They should be the salt on the steak that accentuates the fine flavors and textures. It should not be the Tabasco sauce that you're spraying on a shitty gas station hot dog with a fire hose, so it'll maybe be barely edible.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
The last thing I want to talk about is the villain in this thing. The villain is played by. I'm on the wrong page.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yes, Vincent.
And let me tell you something, Gene Mean. This performance doesn't get talked about fondly.
Yeah, we need to spend a minute on this. Do a mini "Everyone Loves a Bad Guy" here and talk about how great Vincent D'Onofrio in this. Because if you're young, if you're a child and you're watching this, you're like, oh, Vincent D'Onofrio, isn't he the fat guy from the Daredevil show? Yes, he is. But Vincent D'Onofrio is one of the great actors of our age. From Full Metal Jacket to this to all the way to Kingpin, every performance of his is fucking stellar. And
let's face it. In Full Metal Jacket, he is one of 2 performances you remember that movie for.
Yeah. And he's one of 2 characters you remember that movie for.
Yeah, and the big reason you remember the other one is because of R. Lee Ermey playing off of Vincent D'Onofrio.
Right. Which I wanted to say this before. Everyone says nobody can do that opening monologue from Full Metal Jacket better than he can. Maybe Tommy Lee Jones could have. I could see Tommy Lee Jones pulling that off.
I think if you take his performance in Captain America and then just ratchet the volume up to 11 and rip the knob off, I think then he could probably do R. Lee Ermey justice.
kind of that's the direction you give him. Like, hey, this guy did this as a as a demonstration. We want you to do this, and here we're gonna have a mule kick you in the balls and then give you meth. Go. And I think Tommy Lee Jones could have pulled that off. That being said, going back to Vincent,
and that concludes our introduction of the Gary Busey acting method.
Welcome to the Gary Busey School of Acting. Lesson 1. Anywho, Sean recovers. So the art of acting is not just the ability to memorize and spew a recitation of lines with what approximates maybe an emotional pitch. Acting, you act with your face, you act with your body. To really draw somebody in, you have to give a full body, full-throated performance. And when someone is able to do it and do it well, I think it gets underappreciated, because what passes for acting now is, are you pretty and can say memorized lines in a way that doesn't sound like you're reading a hostage letter? The bar is low. So Vincent D'Onofrio, what he brings to the table, especially in Men in Black, is his ability to contort his entire body, change his voice. Like, he really goes for it in Men in Black, and he is just a joy to watch. The introduction of him where he crashes on the planet, and and this is really also great writing, because like, instead of he just shows up and like massacres a town or some bullshit, he shows up and he's like, it's been a long journey and I need sugar and I don't know how this planet works. and I'm dying. Give me sugar. And he's sitting across from the abused housewife out in the sticks. And and of course he's taken on the skin of her husband. And what's even better about this is the cognitive dissonance that he looks nothing like her husband now. His face is all contorted. He clearly looks like he's wearing a bodysuit. And it's great. But the woman is so like fucked up by her husband, and this guy isn't abusing her. It's like, I understand you're probably not my husband, but you're not hitting me either. So get you some sweet tea. Like, what an admission about the human condition in that scene. That is just like, just to not be with the shittiest person we know, we will tolerate something that is clearly not right, but it's better than the alternative.
Yeah.
I just needed to point that out. But yeah, him in that scene with her asking for sugar and then trying to like, all right, I'm here to get a thing, and I'm not interested in the rest of you. And oh, by the way, you're all gross. And it's all in that scene, just in that dialogue. And the woman's still like, still better than my husband. That's all great. Yeah. And I love that. But I was talking, when you ducked out for a second, I was talking about just like how great a performance Vincent D'Onofrio gave in this with his body, and like how he can contort his voice, contort his body, and he keeps it up through the whole thing. And he has a lot of screen time.
He really commits to it and gives the bug a personality.
Yeah.
I think it's the kind of thing that when it comes to playing the monster in a movie, and especially one where you're not given much in the way of actual lines sometimes, where you kind of have to find other ways to bring that out. It's kind of what sets the likes of like Robert Englund and Kane Hodder and others apart, for their ability to truly bring these characters to life. And like, for example, not just see Vincent D'Onofrio in some wacky makeup, but to, assuming at that point that Vincent D'Onofrio was someone you recognized, to be able to legitimately sit there for 90 minutes and at the end go, I completely forgot that was Private Pile I was watching.
Right. Now, again, you watch Daredevil and you're like, oh my God, that's the Kingpin?
Well, and he disappears into that too, because you look at those two characters and then look at his performance in The Cell, and then look at, I apologize, I forget his detective's name in Law and Order Criminal Intent. They're all absolutely different, but this one in particular, he disappears into it so thoroughly. I can't believe we don't give that more credit now for how much personality he kind of gives this rotting, walking, talking skin sack on a deadline.
You know, your ex there dragged me kicking and screaming into talking about the Oscars and Oscar films and whatnot, and now it's become a part of what we do here. And I don't discredit her or fault her for it. It was one of those where, and I'm gonna, like you're dating a girl and the girl's just like, I'm really into this thing, and I'm like, that thing is dumb. Like, I know, but I'm into it, and I want you to be into it too. And you're like, okay, and then you kind of get a taste for it, and you're like, oh, this isn't nearly as bad as I thought it was. That's kind of how she got me to the Oscars.
I will give Alexis credit for this.
Mm-hmm.
There were movies that I ultimately ended up loving that she always hated. I don't think I could name a single movie she likes that I wouldn't agree with was at least good. She may think higher of some than I do, but overall, her tastes are pretty sound as far as what she actually likes.
When she started in on us, all of us neckbeards who hate women, well, like, why don't you guys talk about more Oscar stuff? And we're like, no, stupid girl. and then we're like, oh, maybe. Well, just the black ones, and it just went downhill from there. I got pushed much like polyamory. I got pushed ass backwards into talking about Oscar films, and and now I do. And I think about I bring that all up. Other than my own snarky sense of humor, which I can now unleash upon the world. I can now. I've spent a lot of time thinking about how the Oscars work, talking about how the Oscars work, and I bring that up to say that Vincent D'Onofrio absolutely should have gotten an award, at least a nomination for his performance in this, but he won't because it's a stupid sci-fi action movie starring Big Willie's Weekend. It's like, and that is the unfortunate tragedy of film and awards. It has to be the snootiest and hoity of toity for, or it has to be something that a studio is actively campaigning for. There's no tacit recognition that some performances are just amazing, but they're buried in a silly movie. And so a lot of stuff goes unrecognized, which is why we're spending a minute to talk about it now. Vincent D'Onofrio, and I'll just say it very plainly, gives an Oscar-worthy performance in this movie, and nobody cares because Big Willie's Weekend.
Easily.
Yeah, for sure. All right, anything else about the original Men in Black?
I'll only say that it also has a really good soundtrack album.
Here comes the Men in Black. Yeah.
Also has the Roots and Nas.
If you say so. I honestly don't remember, but I will take your word for it. This is definitely more your speed than mine. All right, so let's get into Men in Black 2, which came out in 2002, also directed by Barry Sonnenfeld. Brings back Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith, but Linda Fiorentino is replaced by Lara Flynn Boyle. Johnny Knoxville is in this. Rosario Dawson's in this. Tony Shalhoub, Rip Torn is back. It's 5 years after the first film, and Agent J is the top agent. But and I'm not reading the whole Wikipedia page, but I had to kind of remind myself what goes on in this movie. This whole thing, if the first one was about getting Will Smith to ascend and replace Tommy Lee Jones, the second one is about Will Smith trusting people around him and being willing to partner with somebody else, which is entirely undone by the fact that they have to bring fucking Kay back. This is actually one of my first issues with this movie, but I'll come back to this. But I don't like the setup for this movie for the reason I don't like what this does and how this is done in other movies, and it bothers me. In any case, the whole movie is essentially about him learning to trust people and having a partner that's someone that isn't Kay, and being able to walk through life partnered with people and trust them and know that his back will always be covered. That's what basically the whole thing behind the movie is. As far as like what the plot is, it's something about a light of Zar. It's another fucking MacGuffin that they're chasing. I barely remember this movie, to be honest with you. Do you remember like what the other plot details of this were? Okay, I think that tells you. Everything. So Men in Black 2, I fuck it, who cares? Men in Black 2 is like, okay, everything about Men in Black 1, but bigger and better and fatter and and more colorful. And I'm like, okay. And it largely succeeds in doing that. But the fact that neither you or I, and you just watched these, and I watched them a month or two ago and still couldn't retain my memory of it, tells you how forgettable this movie is. This is definitely the big boob stripper of movies where you're like, you look pretty and I like watching you, and as soon as you leave, I'm gonna forget you existed. Men in Black 2, everybody. And I'll tell you what I hate about this movie. I'll tell you what I fucking hate about this. So in a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows, we have, okay, I'm gonna give an example of this, a modern example, so that everyone knows where I'm going with this. The Mandalorian season 2 ends with deep fake Luke Skywalker fucking cutting through a ship full of bad guys, saving Baby Yoda, and taking him to be a Jedi. And the Mandalorian going, my job is done. Back to being a bounty hunter. It was amazing. It was an emotional ending. Cub and Lone Wolf and Cub separated, having finished the mission. They're going, they're doing their thing. We as fanboys got our, the hand job we asked for with The Last Jedi. We finally got it. Everything was right in the world. Flowers were blooming. Fog was lifted. It was great. God had blessed the planet yet again, and we were all happy. And then the Book of Boba Fett happens, and we take a brief detour from the Book of Boba Fett, which was going nowhere, but at least it was still something, and decide that we're going to do The Mandalorian season 2.5. And I fucking hate this. They're like, so the Mandalorian's in trouble, Baby Yoda. You could stay here and be... No, listen, toddler baby, child, Muppet. Listen, you who are not old enough to make decisions, but here's an adult decision you can make. Stay here and continue your training, or go save your friend. And the baby says, I'm going to go save my friend now. And they're like, that's good sound decision making, baby. And the baby fucks off. The other
Jedi baby, away!
As rock stupid as that is, it's not. It does a thing that I think is a trope now. It's a common practice in Hollywood writing, and it's the dumb. And that is, we had a perfect pitch, emotional conclusion to a wonderfully told story, but then lizard brain took over, and we ruin it by bringing back people from the dead, by joining people together who had separated. They utterly undid everything that was accomplished with The Mandalorian season 2 by sending Baby Yoda to fuck off and go fight in a Western. And here we are again with Men in Black, where we have this great emotional ending. No, child. No, pretty Will Smith. You gorgeous thing, you. I am Tommy Lee Jones, and I must be hit with a lightsaber, and my clothing politely fall to the ground, and I must fuck off into the distance. Mixing my metaphors. But, but he says, I'm done. This was not about getting a new replacement. This was about replacing me. I've done my bit for God and country. I want to go find the love that I gave up. It was a big part of the original Men in Black. I have a love out there that I walked away from to be in the service. And now I've done I've done my bit for God and country. I would like to go home now. And Will Smith's like, but no, okay, I'm still a child and need a father, and I don't like it when men abandon me. And he's like, no, child, we all must leave the nest someday. And Will Smith says, okay. And the movie ends, and it's great. And then in this movie, because he can't move on and he can't trust anybody, and because somewhere out there was an executive going, so we got to get Tommy Lee Jones back for this, right? They're like, well, no, at the end of the movie, he fucked off and we neuralized him, remember? He has no memory of what happened. I understand that, but $600 million says we have to bring him back. Well, what if we brought back a new guy and created a new relationship, and it was nice and people enjoyed it? They're like, seems risky. Let's just bring the old guy back and make another $600 million. So you utterly undo everything that was great about Men in Black 1 for no other reason than lack of bravery and the need to make more money. There was no narrative reason for this to have happened. Men in Black 2 is the stripper of this series. It is nice big tits and a pretty face and blue eyes and blonde hair if you're into that sort of thing. And when it's gone, time to go home. Men in Black 2.
Which is funny you make that comparison, because the actual scantily clad woman in this movie has about we go from Vincent D'Onofrio, eater of scenery, to Laura Flynn Boyle, mid-tier Power Rangers villain.
Yeah, she is hitting some Rita repugnant pitches.
Oh God, my kingdom for her to have had Rita's charisma.
I kind of wish this movie had Rita Repulsa in it. Would have been better.
I'm settled for a Lord Zed.
That's what Men in Black 2 should have. That's what Men in Black 2 should have been. Will Smith versus the villains from Power Rangers. It would have been awesome.
Oh God,
I got nothing else to add to this. Just you're in charge. They're slappy.
Fuck that. The only thing I'll say that might be of any substance is it feels like they tried to do kind of a role reversal thing where Will Smith is the authority figure and Tommy Lee Jones is kind of the clueless, lost babe in the woods that he's got a handhold throughout the early steps. But it just doesn't work. Like at all, because neither one carries that respective role as well as the other. Frankly, Will gets patently annoying after about 20-30 minutes.
That is very true.
Of this sort of evolution to his character, because it wasn't the type of character he was remotely ready to carry yet.
Yeah. Also, and maybe if they paired him with like a young black kid, and we got to see, having raised his own kids, having lived an interesting life, having gone through clearly some frustrations with his wife. Yeah. He might he might be able to carry off the fatherly mentor role now, but not at the height of his powers. No, he hadn't. I don't think he'd had the life experience yet.
He was even a little hard to believe in Bad Boys, to be honest.
Which one?
And Bad Boys predated Men in Black too.
I didn't see him as like a fatherly figure in Bad Boys. He was big sexy Big Willie.
No, but at that point, even that was a little kind of
okay
for him.
I remember us talking about it, and I remember our discussion of him and Martin Short, and it was very much like
Martin
Lawrence. Yeah. Here's the. Could you imagine it though with Martin Short? Yeah, man, we gotta get these drug dealers, man. I don't know, Will. Woo! As he's like Ed Grimleering around.
Ed, you're gonna make me laugh hard enough to break the stream again. Careful, motherfucker.
Martin Short, Ed Grimleering down like the mountainside of the Dominican Republic as they're smashing through houses. Will! Great. Anywho, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. It was like one was the big sexy one, one had all the charisma, and the other one was like the monster who just wanted to lay down and be with his wife. Like that's what I remember. That's what I remember our discussion of Bad Boys. But anyway, anything else about Men in Black 2?
Not really.
Okay, let's move on then. Men in Black. Hey, what we've learned in 20 years of podcasting? When to fucking move on and not beat a horse to death.
Eventually, we learned.
Did I say beating a dead horse?
It's a classic for a reason.
Indeed. Men in Black 3. Also directed by Barry Sonnenfeld. This brings in Josh Brolin, who for the most part takes over the Tommy Lee Jones character, because this is a time travel plot. And I'm just going to read the first part of this. In 2012, alien criminal Boris the Animal, the last Boglodyte, I'll say, escapes from a maximum security prison on the moon to take revenge on Agent K, who shot off his left arm and captured him in 1969. He confronts K and his partner, Agent J, and telling the former he's already dead. K attempts to prevent J from pursuing Boris, refusing to give any exact details of the arrest. Back at headquarters, J discovers K was responsible not only for capturing Boris, but for deploying the ArcNet, an interplanetary shield that prevented the Boglodytes from invading Earth, leading to their extinction. Boris travels back to 1969, and Will Smith follows him, and then the plot just unravels from there. I don't remember people liking this one as much, but I will tell you, I didn't see it by 2012. By 2012. 2012 was 11 years ago. Yikes. So yeah, my daughter is born. I'm not going to the movies like I will in a few years. I'm certainly not doing this podcast, so I didn't give a shit about this movie, and I never saw it. So the first time I watched it was a few months ago for this podcast, and I'm gonna go and see if I'm right about this, but I don't remember this being that bad. I think it's a step up from the second one, to be honest with you. But I feel like I don't know. Let me look here. All right, so it had a Marvel budget of $225 million. It makes over $700 million, so it made money. Critical response is it's a 68 on Rotten Tomatoes. Roger Ebert gave it a 3 out of 4 stars. Oh, I guess it did okay. People liked it. Renee Rodriguez of the Miami Herald gave it 1 out of 4 stars, saying it's so dull and empty. It's the first movie that has ever made me think, thank God it's in 3D. That being said, I think this is a solid movie. I think the addition of Josh Brolin was an interesting one. I liked his chemistry with Will Smith for what it was, and I liked the young K interacting with older J. I think it was an interesting dynamic, and it's serviceable. This one doesn't necessarily get the stripper image in my head. This one is more of like, this was a it's a good woman, good solid woman. Nothing spectacular about her. Not great, not awful, not the kind of girl you want to divorce. She's perfectly, she's kind of girl you can go through life with and pay the bills and live a perfectly normal suburban middle class life. That's this movie to me.
I thought it was surprisingly clever for a time travel story. Time travel just kind of sounds like a great big treasure trove of hand-wavy cliches you can just throw over any plot hole you happen to stumble across.
Sure.
I thought that as far as focus on characters went, it was absolutely a return to form. In terms of focusing on Jay's maturation, getting to really know Kay a little bit better than we already have. The script was pretty tight. The action was solid. The jokes weren't overly Will.
Yeah.
We once more got maybe not a Vincent D'Onofrio level, but a villain with some actual presence, with some semblance of character, complete with a running joke, which never really does get fully explained. But it's an attempt at a running joke. It's an attempt at a joke that ran.
Yep.
And even kind of a nice, tidy, feel good ending too. That's kind of in the same vein of those previous pullback gags in the other two movies. So, I mean, overall, I enjoyed the hell out of it, and actually, it kind of makes me think. I wonder what other movies we could remake with Josh Brolin in Tommy Lee Jones's place. That might also be kind of because he's like the perfect stand-in. He's like nature's perfect. We have Tommy Lee Jones at home, and Tommy Lee Jones at home actually turns out to be not half bad.
I'll give that some thought. Right now, all I can think about is Thanos. Actually, so people post like movie clips on TikTok, and they'll be in my feed at times. And occasionally, I'll get stuff from like the Avengers. It's so funny, like the Russo brothers, like trying to get the most out of Josh Brolin. It's like, okay, so you're like this giant, unconquerable alien. You've killed half the universe, and your whole plot got undid. And you have a second chance at this. You have a second chance to wreck the Avengers and redo the snap. And it's like, okay, what do you need me to do in this scene? I don't know. Look tired. Look like Grandpa. Like Josh Brolin. It's worse than Infinity War. And these are not complaints. But Josh Brolin at an Endgame, when he's pointing the sword and telling all of his minions, after Captain America yells "Avengers Assemble," he's like, "Go!" It's kind of like when I tell my kid to go like take the garbage out. God, go. Just fucking go. I'm gonna do that from now on. Whenever I need him to do something, I'm just gonna like just point the sword.
I do love the sword point.
It is a mixture of this is not I'm fucking all you people up. I have had enough of the Avengers. I have had enough of these motherfucking Avengers on this motherfucking planet. It's not that, which would have been awesome, by the way, especially if he had said it that way. It instead it's just like, you're all exhausting. I'm so tired of being here. I don't want to do this anymore. Kill them. It's an interesting take. Yay, Josh Brolin. So Josh Brolin now, like in that kind of exhausted Thanos performance, I don't know where I would put him. Where you want to take Tommy Lee Jones out, though. I'll give you this one just to have fun with this idea. My favorite line from The Fugitive, when Harrison Ford, right before he yeets off the fucking tunnel, he's just like, I didn't do it. I didn't kill my wife. And I don't care. I totally now want to see Josh Brolin, but in the Thanos makeup with the sword going, I don't care. And like, put
well, look, if we can keep making Danny Glover fucking keep regurgitating, I'm too old for this shit.
Yeah.
After all these years.
Josh Brolin in every movie now must point a sword and look exhausted while doing so.
I don't think that's too much to ask.
And that, folks, is our review of the Men in Black trilogy. This was fun. This was an hour of just us shooting the shit about these movies. Yeah. When I think about Long Road to Ruin, I think especially with the old ones, like how deep we got into things, how many side tangents we went on, because I've had to edit all this stuff. Go back and listen to it. I think I just kind of enjoy spending an hour quickly talking about these movies, unless they spark more of a conversation and kind of going, okay, we did it. We talked about it. There's nothing more left I can say about these movies. These were not deep thinker movies outside of maybe some elements of the first one, but they are wildly entertaining, and I can see their place in people's movie collections if people still have those.
And that's why I kind of really enjoyed that brief slate of kind of rewinds that we did. It was a chance to go back and revisit some series that I either wasn't real proud of the show that I gave you guys at that point, or just a series that I had since changed my mind about.
All right. So that's it for this week. Monday, I did a triple feature with Ronnie. We did a focus on Guy Ritchie. We looked at Operation Fortune, Rose de Gueux. We looked at The Covenant. And then we went back and looked at Snatch. Myself and Jason Teasley, the Protocol Son, we compared hey, Sean, another idea that we had that I went off and did with somebody else because I'm not faithful. I took the on trial civil court idea that we had.
Nice.
Yeah, we did White Men Can't Jump. We did the original versus the current remake, which is an affront to cinema. So that was that
bad. I'd actually been thinking about giving that a look.
I mean, please give it a look because everyone should feel mine and Jason's pain. I couldn't help but notice your pain. Share it with me. So yeah, look, it's good. You got a Hulu subscription, 2 hours to kill. Fucking watch it, but you're not gonna be happy. As far as when is Sean coming back? Every other Thursday until he dies.
Happily.
The next one is the Red Curtain trilogy. That'll be November 2nd. That'll be the next Long Road to Ruin, I should say. The next Long Road to Ruin is the Red Curtain trilogy. We're looking at Baz Luhrmann. another director focus. This one is strictly ballroom. Romeo and Juliet, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes, and Moulin Rouge, which I watched at the Jackie's house, but spent too much time talking to Jackie and didn't actually watch it. So I will watch
Jackie.
Don't be. She's very glad I paid attention to her that night. However, I will watch for the very first time in my life Moulin Rouge. However, when will Sean actually be back? October 5th, so like in 2 weeks. And we are doing a director-focused triple feature. We are looking at Jordan Peele. We are looking at Get Out, Us, and Nope. Of which I've seen none of these movies. So
I have watched Get Out. I am probably watching Us tonight and Nope sometime in the near future. Get Out may be one of my new favorite horror movies.
Okay, I'm looking forward to it. I've heard nothing but good things about this trio of movies. And it was just one of those where I either wasn't reviewing movies like that at the time, or it didn't fit into the schedule. I was on vacation. Who the fuck knows? So when Sean and I were putting together, and the Sean and I 3.0 schedule, this was one of his ones that he was like, "Hey, remember when I used to make you watch horror movies? Well, I'm back, fucko." So we're so Jordan Peele.
In fairness, there is no gore. There is no monster. There's a little bit of blood. It's a little violent in places, but nothing phantasmagorical to really kind of
this ain't Hellraiser.
Squick you out. Absolutely not. Totally different.
So that's what we're doing. As what we're doing next week on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. Myself and Robert Winfrey will be talking The Expendables 4. And then we're back on the Metal Hammer of Doom jukebox. We're going to be looking at Cannibal Corpse, Chaos, Horrific. We're going to watch some videos. And Jesse's going to introduce us to his new girlfriend. Have you heard this? Jesse is unfaithful to his wife. Jesse Starcher. He walks with Jesus. He's good to his mother. He fondles people's junk as he roams around town. But he's also he's also joined the ranks of polyamory. Did you know that? Did you know that Jesse has a girlfriend now? And that girlfriend is ChatGPT. The G in ChatGPT stands for girlfriend.
Yeah, had me in the first half. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, Jesse's new thing is ChatGPT. He's been putting up like podcasts, like asking ChatGPT to write him stories.
No,
oh yeah, Jesse has joined me in giving up on humanity and embracing the technology.
No. So I am the character that we need in movies where they tell people, you put that thing back where it came from. Put it the fuck back.
We don't need the xenomorph as a weapon. Put it back. No, Jesse is full on board bringing xenomorphs to Earth. And so the whole reason I went into this tangent is we're going to spend a segment on the Metal Hammer of Doom Jukebox Tuesday as Jesse's going to whip out his ChatGPT and show it to us. We're all going to have a turn with it.
Jesse, no one wants to see your ChatGPT.
So Jesse, we'd all like a turn with your ChatGPT. Why do I make everything sexual? Because I'm me. Anyway, that's what I got going on. Sean Comer, show us where you Twitch from.
Twitch.tv/Comer Codex. I am planning on being on tomorrow night. That is September 22nd from about figure 8 p.m. Central Time. I'm going to be playing some late season ranked Overwatch. And if I'm still feeling sprightly, we might actually be launching into the Mass Effect trilogy, starting from the very beginning tomorrow night. So, in fact, Mark, you go ahead and finish up. There's someone at the door.
All right. Folks, thank you for joining us here on the Long Road to Ruin on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. That was Sean. I'm Mark. Be well, be safe, and behave.